glory in the east and the west.
Your name will be known.
Every tribe, every tongue.
Your song will be sung all over the world.
When I first came to study in the UK, the biggest problem I had was to be alone and feel lonely. Unfortunately, because it was quite expensive to call home, I could only call once a week. And during that time, I would obviously tell them that I'm doing okay, and sometimes I would even have to put up a brave face and say, and not tell them the difficulties I might have, because I didn't want them to be disappointed or worried about me. But also because they may not understand what I was going through, coming from a completely different background. I had thought about going home many times, dropping everything I had and just buy a ticket and go home. But air ticket was very expensive, and it was a lot to ask for my parents to support me financially to study here, and to ask to go home every term was impossible. Language was obviously a problem too. I thought I could understand English quite well on paper, but to actually speak and listen to the language on a daily basis was not easy. What I also missed was the fresh produce and food that I could get back home. It took me a while to get used to getting my vegetables from a packet rather than freshly looking beautiful greens that I could choose from in the market. And other things to get used to would be the weather, because it's always dark and miserable. That's at least how I remembered it anyway. And the days are much shorter than I used to. And therefore, to be alone in a dark and small room was even more miserable than it would sound now. To overcome the problem of loneliness, I naturally drew myself towards other Chinese students. And actually through them, then I got to know people from the church who are local people, whom I then found were as welcoming, as friendly as some of these Chinese friends I've met. One of my best friends I've made when I first came was this British couple who took me into their family. And I still remember when they first cooked me a very nice Sunday lunch, my first British Sunday lunch. And that's when I actually felt I was at home again. In church, I've learned a lot about the British culture and the people. But it's also through the church that I felt most accepted as who I was. It didn't really matter what color my skin was when I was in church. I was just loved as Junie.